So welcome to making the Icelandic style gloves or mittens. These are going to be beautiful. As you can see, we're using an alpaca chunky to make it with. This is so soft, but it's not just about the softness, it's about the warmth when you're making gloves and mittens. So it's going to be lovely, soft and warm for you to wear. Always be careful, just like with any pure wool, you be really careful about the washing instructions. It's always worth keeping one of the labels because you need to double check how you're going to be washing these. Okay, so no hot washes, otherwise you'll never get your fingers into them. So I've chosen 3 colours. The grey is going to be the main colour in this, with the charcoal and the neutral being the pattern colours, but it's going to look lovely. So the first thing we do, as always, is casting on. So we're going to have we need a tail of 60 centimeters long. So measure out a 60 centimeter long tail. There we go. There's my 60 centimeters. That's 60 centimeters. Let's move the tape measure out of the way. That's 60 centimeters. Make a loop around your finger, push the yarn through the loop, pull it tight so you've got a loop there, and we're going to be using the 4.5mm needles. Put it through the loop and pull them tight. Okay, so we've got stitch number 1 on the needle, and we need to cast on 28. So just like normal, yarn around your finger, turn your finger so you make a loop, needle through the loop, yarn around the needle in a knit fashion, and pull it gently tighter again. So yarn behind your finger, twist your finger around to make a loop, needle through the loop, yarn around the needle and pull the loop. Oh, I didn't get that one in the right place. Oh, I've pulled them all out. So it's useful for you to see me get it wrong. So I'm back to stitch number 1. So here we go. 2, yarn around my finger, needle through. 3, 4, and cast on 28 stitches. Okay, so you need to cast on 28. So I've cast on my 28 stitches. Before you go any further, you double check that you've cast on 28. Just like I've shown you before, the best thing to do is to count in tens. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold that and then count. Use your thumb to count the next 10. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 28. I haven't got much left of a tail, but I'm still going to tie that up so I don't get confused about which thread I'm using. So just fold it in half and just put a little loose knot in it, because you can use this for sewing up later. So just a loose knot like that. Okay, so we're ready to start our rib pattern on the 28 stitches. So it's very straightforward, this is. So it's a knit stitch first of all. So through the stitch, the needle you push in goes behind the other one, yarn around between the 2 needles, and then slip that one over, then purl stitch, pull the yarn around to the front, needle goes down through the stitch, yarn goes between and around the front needle, and when you come up you pull up this time. So I've done 2, yarn around the back for the knit stitch, push up through the stitch to the back of the needle, yarn around and down, bring the yarn to the front, up, down, yarn and up. Okay, so keep going, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1 to the end. So you end up with a purl one. We started with a knit, you end up with a purl, then you turn around to the next row and it's exactly the same again. Knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one. Remember what I've always said before, the first row after you've cast on is always the trickiest one. Stitches aren't quite the right tension. Got to make sure they get to the right tension. Okay, so not pulling the yarn too tight, just holding it gently between your fingers. Not too loose, but not too tight. Tight enough so that you've got a good hold of it. It's not falling through your fingers, not so tight that you're pulling it and you can feel a pull on the wool. There's got to be some give in it, okay? So you keep going all the way to the end, knit one, purl one, then you turn over, you do the next row, knit one, purl one, then next row, knit one, purl one, until you've done 7 centimeters of rib. Okay, so you measure it and you will have done 7 centimeters. And when you end a row, when you finish your 7 centimeters, you should have this end here, you should be at the top of your needle, end of your needle. So it should be right at the pointed end of your needle. So it shows that you finished on a wrong side row. Okay, so first row is always a right side row, second row is always a wrong side row. So you should finish on an even numbered row for your 7 centimeters. And then I'll show you what to do next. So I've completed 7 centimeters of rib. So I put my tape measure at the top, pull her rib down. There's the 7 centimeters completed. I finished on a wrong side because the end of the piece that I started with is near the top of the needle. So I'm ready to do my next row. My next row is going to be an increase row, and I will show you how to do that. So first of all, what we're going to do in order to make the main part, so this is the rib part of the glove, the bit that will mean that the glove stays, or the mitten stays nice and tight to your wrist. So we need the main part of the mitten to be slightly looser than that, so it fits over the wider part of your hand. So in order to make it slightly wider, there are 2 ways we're going to do that. We're going to swap to a larger needle. This is where we move to the 6mm needle. So we're going to have, that's one way of increasing the size of this part of the mitten. And then the other way of increasing the size of this part of the mitten is by adding extra stitches to make it wider that way. And we're going to be adding 4 extra stitches. So we start off with 28, so we'll have 32 stitches by the end of this row. So it's fairly straightforward. The way I'm going to show you to increase is a very easy way of doing it. So first of all, the first thing you do is you make sure that you've got your size 6mm needle. So I'm going to start knitting off of, I've got the 4.5 here, and I'm going to start knitting with the 6. So it's just a knit row, this one. Okay, so it's a start of its stocking stitch we're going to be doing for the rest of the glove. So stocking stitches, knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, purl a row. So this is the knit row. So what we're going to do is 5 stitches first of all. So 5 ordinary stitches, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've knitted 5 stitches. Now I'm going to increase a stitch now. There's a number of ways of increasing stitches, but on this one, it's probably the simplest way of increasing a stitch. I'm going to be showing you today. So what we do is, if you've got your two needles here ready to knit, but if you see in between there's a thread there, piece of a yarn, and a bit of a hole underneath. This is going to be the easiest way of increasing stitch. So just as if you were knitting into the next stitch, you put your needle through there. What we're going to do is going to put the needle through that hole, yarn around the back, pull it out. I've got an extra stitch. So, and now I'm going to knit 6 stitches and then increase another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Increase another stitch. You can see where it's going to go already. This bit in the middle here. Put my needle through the hole, 1 piece of yarn on top. Put my yarn around my needle just as if I was going to knit a stitch. Put it back out through there. And I've done it again. So I've got an extra stitch. I've increased 2 now. Knit another 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Increase a stitch exactly the same way under that 1 piece of yarn around the back, pull your needle back through. Got 3 stitches extra now, and knit another 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exactly the same through the under that piece of yarn in the middle, under there, yarn round, pull back through, and then I've got 5 left, and I knit those 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it really wasn't difficult. That we've increased 4 stitches, we've transferred to the larger needles, and I put down my other 4.5 millimeter needle, and I pick up my other 6, where is it, 6 mil needle, and I'm going to knit the next row on that. So this is the start of stocking stitch. Very straightforward. The whole of the rest of the mitten is in stocking stitch. So all I've got to do now is stocking stitch 5 more rows. So it'll be purl a row, knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, purl a row. So 5 rows just in this colour of stocking stitch, and then we're going to be introducing another colour for the pattern, and I'll show you how to do that next. After the increase row, I've done the other 5 rows of stocking stitch, and now it's time to start looking at the different colour to add to the pattern into this. So we're going to carry on knitting in the grey. The next colour I'm going to add is the charcoal, black, if you want to call it. And it's very easy, the start of this pattern, so it's nothing to worry about. So knit 1 stitch of grey, get ready to knit, but this time the next one's going to be in the black. So just loop that around, hold on to it. Now what I'm going to show you a way of doing now is a way of weaving in the black, which will save you having to weave it in afterwards. So I've done 1 stitch of grey, 1 stitch of black, and anybody who knows my patterns before, if you're not careful when you do the next stitch, you're going to start pulling this little tail that you've left of black at the back. You'll start pulling that out a little bit, because of the tension of the stitches. So I'm just going to shorten that tail a little bit, so it's like about 5 centimeters long, something like that. So the next colour next stitch is going to be in grey, but before I knit that stitch, I'm just going to twist that tail of black around the grey wool. Okay, so this stitch of grey wool is going to start holding that black tail in place. So knit a stitch of grey. Next one is knit a stitch of black. I'm going to do exactly the same for the black. I'm going to wind that tail of wool around the yarn before I even put it around my needle, and then this. So what you can see at the back is that tail is gradually getting shorter. So I'm just going to show you this time from this side. So got my needle ready to knit. Get my yarn before I put it around. I put it around in front of the tail, push the tail over it, hold it down with my finger, and just around the needle and knit. And each of these is just very gradually weaving in that tail, so that I don't have to do it afterwards. It's a job I don't have to do afterwards. Okay, I've virtually, it's not much of it left there, probably one or two more. One more, here we go. And the black. And if I turn it over now, there it is. It's all woven in. Got a little bit of a tufty end there, but that, if you want to cut that off, but I wouldn't suggest you do. It's just as the glove stretches, that will pull back into the weave. So that's all woven in. What you can see I'm doing is I'm knitting one in grey, one in black, grey, black, all the way along to the end. Come to the end of this row, alternating between the grey and the black. If you notice that some of my it's a bit twisted at times, some of my wool, but that doesn't matter at all, because on this row, this knitting, if I turn it around ready to do the purl stitches on the way back, I'm only purling back in black. So what I'm going to do, because I don't like wasting wool if I don't need to, because it might come in useful for something else, I might be able to do another one. So I'm just going to snip a tail, my grey, my scissors are, I've decided not to work, there you go. Now, pull the grey away, untwist it all as it pulls out, and I'm going to just purl backwards in black. Now this is the inside, remember we wove the other tail of black in just now, and I'm going to weave this tail of grey in now, and it'd be easier for you to see from this side. Okay, so purl one in the first one in black, purl the next one in black as well. So I get hold of the grey, I've pushed that tail under the black, and I'm going to pull it over the top of that wool, hold it there with my thumb, take the black yarn around the back of the needle, and then I've started to weave in that tail. Okay, so each time take the black over the top, push the grey over the top of the black wool, and knit a stitch, or purl a stitch I should say. Okay, so I'm going all the way back along doing this. It won't take very long, it's only probably about one or two more stitches again now. Over the top, purl, one more, purl, and that just saves me a job at the end. I don't have to sew in all the ends. Okay, you can only do this when you're doing stocking stitch, because if you've got a purl stitch going to the front of your knitting on the right side row, it doesn't work. Okay, so really it only works the stockinette stitch. I finished the row of purling in black, turned it around already, ready to do my knit row next, and the knit row brings the grey back in. We're going to start with the black, part of the chart pattern, do one in black, next one's going to be in grey, so just like last time, a bit of a tail on my grey, 5 centimeters approximately, around the needle, and I'm going to weave this grey in again. Look, so I'll show you, black's going to go over the top, grey twist around the black yarn, black around the needle. Already that's holding that grey in play. So grey over the top of the grey around, there you go. Starting to weave it in. It just saves me having to do it, and I think it actually goes for a neater finish as well. Okay, so finish weaving that in and alternate grey and black to the end of the row. Once you finish this row of pattern, you then turn around. Don't need the black attached anymore, so I'm going to cut that with a 5cm tail approximately, and then what I'm going to do is this next bit of the pattern is just knit 3 rows of stocking stitch. So very straightforward. Don't forget to weave in that piece of black before while you're going along. So I'll start here. So 3 rows of stocking stitch, weaving in the black as you go along at the beginning of this row, and then I'll show you how to start to shape the thumb of the mitten. So 3 straight rows of stocking stitch, of purl, knit, purl. So I've knitted my 3 rows of stocking stitch, and in order to make the thumb, this is going to be the right hand glove. So in order to make the thumb, we need to put some stitches aside to make the thumb shape. So what I'm going to do now is the last 6 stitches that I sewed, I'm going to knitted, I'm going to put them on a pin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and those are just going to sit there and wait for me to sew the thumb. Now we still need the same number of stitches. We still need 32 in order to carry on sewing the rest of the mitten. So what we're going to do is we have to make 6 more stitches. So again, I'm going to cut. I'm going to leave a slightly longer tail on this one though, because it's I don't want any of these to come undone. So I'll leave a tail there at 10 centimeters. And what I'm going to do now, just like we do before with cast on, I'm going to cast on 6 stitches. Cast on 6 with a tail of about 15-20 centimeters. So just like we normally do with cast on, make 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got my 6 stitches, and then I just carry on knitting here. So I put my needle there and just carry on. 1. And I'm actually going to start weaving this tail in again. 2, and I should have got my 32 stitches back again. This is too long to weave in this tail. I'm going to cut a bit off. Okay, so I carry on across this row. So this is for the right hand thumb. What I'm going to show you next is how you're going to do this if it was for the left hand thumb. Okay, so I would carry on knitting all the way across. I'm going to show you how to do this with the left hand thumb when I get to the other end, because the left hand thumb will be on the left side, right hand thumb is on the right side. Okay, so I'll show you how to do the left hand thumb. Okay, so if you were knitting the left hand thumb, you still knit the 3 rows after the first black pattern, but what you do is you put the first 6 stitches onto the pin. Okay, so you put the first 6 stitches onto the pin of that 3rd row, When you get back here and you knit back across in your stocking stitch, you get to this part, and we haven't got a tail. I've still got my wool, but I haven't got a tail to knit from, so I'll show you another way of casting on some stitches. Okay, so to save time and effort, so just like before, you make the loop around the finger, okay, like we'd normally have done. Okay, but this time you make an extra twist with your finger. So what you do is you put the loop around your finger just like before, and then you twist again and put your needle through the loop, put that around, and then pull it tight. Okay, you just got to do it gently, this one, because that first loop can pull up around the sides there. So I'll show you again. Around my finger, just like you do with a cast on stitch, but an extra twist. Needle through, yarn around, and then pull it gently and tighter. And you've got to do 6 of these. So yarn around the finger, extra twist, needle through. Okay, gently pull it. So you got to do 6 of these stitches, just like the other end we cast on 6. Got to cast on 6 this side. It's a slightly different technique. So yarn around the finger, extra twist. This is number 4. Just doing it gently, just pulling it gently this time, because you just got to make sure that those go down. You see the 4 that I've cast on, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn around the finger, extra twist, 5, and 1 more. Yarn around the finger, extra twist, 6. So on this one, for my left hand thumb, I've got the hole ready for the thumb, and I carry on knitting. So both gloves are exactly the same, it's just that the thumb holes are on different sides. Okay, so it's no big problem, they're just on different sides, and it's just that the cast on part on this side is slightly different because you haven't got a tail. Otherwise you'd have to cut the yarn, and you can do an ordinary cast on if you want, but this is just an alternative technique. So for the right thumb, I've knitted all the way back across, and what I need to do now is I have to use stocking stitch and do 5 more rows. So if you're following the chart, do 5 more rows of grey, and then I pick up the white pattern, and then the black pattern, and then the white pattern. Okay, I'll come back to you when we start the white, but I think you've got the hang of it from this one, so I'll just get you going on the white. Okay, so 5 rows of stocking stitch. Okay, so just about to start the white pattern, exactly the same as the black. You follow the chart that you've got. This one, you start with the white, so knit 1 white, hold on to the end, knit 1 grey, and then start to weave that end of the white in. Okay, so weaving it in, I'm going to pull it a bit because I've got too much of a tail. The white, weave it in, 1 white, 1 grey, and keep going along all the way along, and follow the chart until you get to the end of the last white pattern. Okay, until you get to the end of the last white pattern, and then I'll show you where to go from there. Okay, so I've come to the end of my white pattern. So I've got, this is my mitten, how it's looking so far. And what I need to do now is just one row of purl of the grey, and then I will show you how we start decreasing for the top of the glove. We've come to the part where we're going to decrease on the top of the mitten to shape it to fit your hand. Okay, so what we're going to do then is, first of all, at the beginning we're going to knit two together. Knit two together means literally that you have two stitches. You put your needle through the first two stitches. You see I'm pushing my needle through two stitches, yarn around the back, knit it, and that's, I've got one less stitch on my here now. So knit two together, then knit 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then knit two more together. So pushing my needle up through two stitches. I'll show you that again. There's the two. I'm pushing it up through two, yarn around, pull it back. There. So that's one side of the glove done, and I do exactly the same over the other side of the glove. Knit two together, needle up through two stitches, yarn around, and knit 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then knit two together. So two stitches left, push my needle up through both and knit. The second decrease row is exactly the same as the first, except you're purling obviously, and you've only got 10 stitches now between the two knit together. So with purl, when you purl two together, I should say, rather than knit two together, you do exactly the same. So your needle goes through two stitches, you purl, and then purl 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then purl two together, purl two together again, purl 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then purl two together again. And what you're starting to get is you're starting to get like a lump showing this side in the middle. And what that is when this is folded in half, and it's going to be the mitten when it's folded in half. This is going to be one half of the top. Oh, let's pop that one back on since it's popped off my end of my needle. Okay, so we're starting to get the shape at the top of the mitten now, this bit and this bit over this side. Sure. Okay, so next row exactly the same again, but this time there'll only be 8 stitches between the decreases, then again, and there'll only be 6 stitches between decreases, then exactly the same again, but then it'll be 4 stitches between the decreases, and then we're into the cast off row. Okay, so finish off doing your decreases now, and I'll see you at the cast off row. We're on the last 2 rows now before we cast off. So this one is pull 2 together, pull 2 together, knit 2, pull 2 together, and again pull 2 together, pull 2, I should have said pull 2 earlier, pull 2 and pull 2 together. Right, so we've completed that, so now it is literally just casting off. So knit 1, knit 2, pass that one over, knit another one, 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 pass that one over, nearly at the end now, knit another one, pass that one over, knit another one, pass that one over, and then simply cut our yarn, make this loop a little bit larger, push the yarn through the loop, and there we are. And what we've done is, as we've shaped, we've been shaping one side of the glove, so we only have to have one side of the glove that we sewed together. The other one's already shaped. I'll be sewing this together in a moment. Okay. What we're going to do next, though, is I'm going to show you how to do the thumb. Okay, so we're going to do the thumb now. So we come back to the pin that's got the stitches on. Okay, so we've got the pin that's got the stitches on, and we've got the other side. And what we're going to do is we're going to knit this in a straight line like that. Okay, that's why I've devised this pattern like this, to make it really easy to do something which looks very complicated, but it's actually very straightforward. So first of all, before we take anything off the pin, I'm actually just going to slide my needle straight back through these stitches which are on the pin, and do the pin, slide the pin out. I think that last one's just split the wool a bit. Let's push that on properly. So I've got my 6 stitches back on here. Okay, so I've got my 6 stitches back on, and what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to pick up 6 stitches from across this part of the glove. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so got my grey wool, and what I should have got, which I will have got, is I will have 6 stitches here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So here's number 1. So I'm going to go right into that. I'm going to put my needle into the very end of that stitch. Okay, I put my loop around there and pull it through. The next one, you see it's like almost like an arrow. If you look at like a row and you can see the arrow, I'm going to put it through the end of that one, and I'm also at the same time I'm going to weave this bit in so I don't have a loose bit. 2 stitches. I look at my next arrow, there it is. Move that one around there. 3. My next arrow, push it through there. This one around. 4. My next arrow, push it through. Wind this around. 5. My last arrow right on the edge. Always the tightest one. Anything near the edge. Push that through. Wind that around. 6. So I've got 12 stitches now. This is my loose one at the end. Be careful because I've just got a piece of thread there. We can weave that in a moment. So I've got 12 stitches all ready to start to knit the thumb now. So we've got the 12 stitches. And turn it around because it's going to be purl is going to be the first row, and we're going to do 8 rows. 8 rows on these 12 stitches. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A bit awkward. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Remember I told you the last one is going to be a loose stitch because it's got an end. So let's knit it. 12, and then pull that one back a bit tighter. Then when I turn it around this way and I go back across this way, I'm just going to start weaving that end in now so that that stitch isn't quite as loose. So put it around again, 1, put it around again, 2, around again, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what I'm going to do here, because I think that's plenty, I don't need to do any more. I'm just going to cut the rest of that off. Don't need to carry on after 6 stitches. Weaving in 6 stitches is plenty. Cut that off, get it out of the way. Okay, so I've knitted 2 rows now. I need to carry on and knit 8. Ready to go with the decrease on the thumb now. So it's going to be purl 1, purl 2 together. Should be used to doing the 2 together now. Purl 1, purl 2 together, purl 1, purl 2 together, purl 1, purl 2 together. Oh, at the end. Turn it around. Then it's going to be knit 2 together all the way across. So again, up through 2 stitches, knit 2 together, next 2, knit 2 together, next 2, knit 2 together, next 2, knit 2 together. Okay, and we've finished the knitting shaping of this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish off the top of the thumb. I'm going to cut a piece of yarn which is long enough though to help me sew up the thumb. So let me cut it here. So I've got plenty of yarn. So I'm thinking about 20-25 centimeters of yarn. What I'm going to do now, go back to my stitches, and what I'm going to do, it looks like I'm it's a means of casting off which gathers up the stitches which are left on the needle. So what it is I put the yarn around the needle as if I was going to knit with it, and I literally get hold of one of the stitches and slip it over the top of the yarn, and I'll do the same with the next one, slipping it over the top of that yarn which I've just pulled on there, and I'm just holding this piece of the yarn quite tight so I don't push this yarn off. Next one over the top, third one over the top, fourth one over the top, and then this piece of yarn I pull it right the way through, and then this will pull the top of the thumb tight. Okay, so it helps finish off the shaping of the thumb. So no needle is attached at the moment to my mitten. Next thing we have to do is we have to sew up the thumb. Okay, so it's just the thumb first of all. So what we're going to do is we make sure that the right side, so the side with the pattern as you want it, is touching each other, so that you've got the wrong side of the knitting on the outside. Basically you've turned our knitting inside out. Okay, so we've got it like this. So what I'm going to do next is thread this yarn that I left when I finished my thumb onto my needle. Okay, and you can still see these stitches are quite loose on here. They will come undone if I'm not careful, so I'll keep hold of those. So first thing I do is make sure I attach those off. So I'm just going to take my thread through the very first stitch so I've got that together. Okay, so got it down here. So what I do is I go through a stitch on one side and make sure I go through the stitch on the opposite side, and it's just a running stitch. It's nothing complicated at all. It's just a running stitch. Making sure that I'm matching up the two sides though. I want to make sure that the thumb is completely matched side to side. Oh, there's one of my cats. I'm sure you can see his paw there. Right, well, he's disappeared now, thank goodness for that, because he'd have meowed all the way through. So keep on going, matching up the two sides. All the way down the thumb. You can see the thumb starting to take shape now. Okay, so when I get to the bottom of the thumb, you can feel it when you get to the bottom of the thumb. It's the thicker bits, just because remember we've had to weave bits in and things like that. So I'm just going to go 3 times in the same place. One, 2, 3. And what I'm going to do with this, well, I've still got the yarn on my needle, so I'm just going to weave it back up through that seam. It's going to be much too long, this yarn is, so I'm going to need to cut it off. So I've just pushed that up through the seam, and then I can cut that end off. So that's that done. Okay, so if I turn my thumb back in the right way now, you can see the thumb on the glove. Okay, so that's going to be like that on that mitten. So what I need to do now is I need to sew up this side of the mitten all the way around to the top, all the way around. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it inside out. So this time I'll be pushing the thumb onto the inside as well. Okay, so I've turned my mitten inside out. Now normally I would be using some of this, but there's not enough yarn left over. There's no way that that's going to reach all the way up to the top of the mitten. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo that anyway, and I will weave this in while I sew with another bit. So I'm going to have to cut a piece of yarn off of my ball, a fairly decent bit, just to make sure I've got enough. I'm going to go for 50 or 60 centimeters. Thread my needle again. Right, this bit that's left on here, I don't need it that long. I'm going to cut some of that off, leave about 5 centimeters. Get those out of the way. Right, so I'm starting with the ribbed edge. So I make sure I go in the very first one and the very first one on this side. Right, now these two ends, I'm going to need to weave them in at the same time. Okay, so twist them around that yarn. Next stitch, we'll pull them around so that they're pulled in tight. Okay. Again, weave it around again. Weave them around again. So again, six stitches should be plenty to know that they're well secured in place. And you keep on all the way up this side of the glove, up to the top. And what I suggest you do as you're doing this is make sure that things are matching all the way up, so that when you get to the top of the rib, make sure that both of the tops of the rib are matching each side. Okay, so get to the top of the rib now, and I should have got both sides. Make sure my last rib on this side matches with my last rib on that side. Yeah, and then the same when you get up here to the black pattern, make sure that those are matching. It will help you to keep them in place, okay? To make sure that they are even on both sides, that the pattern matches as the glove goes around your hand. Okay, so I'm nearly up to my first black pattern. And I'm looking at the two sides of the black pattern. I'm making sure that those are matching. Okay, and then all the way up, make sure you tuck the thumb inside. See, there's the thumb. Make sure that's tucked inside, and you sew. The next bit I'm going to be doing is sewing across the end of that thumb. You need to make sure that there's quite tight stitches here, because otherwise you'll end up with a gap. Okay, so I'm looking at my white as well, making sure that that's matching. Making sure that I put plenty of stitches in the end, in that bit where the thumb is closed, just here. Okay, I'll see you when you get to the top. So the last thing to do is to turn it in the right way, so you can see what your finished article looks like. Okay, looking good. Quite impressed. First thing I'm going to do is to put it on. Now the rib's quite tight, nothing wrong with that. Keep it nice and cozy on my hand through the coldest of winter days. So it's going and doing the one on the other side now, so that you can see what they both look like together. Very lovely warm wool. It's going to keep you nice and cozy, this. So there's both gloves made, looking lovely. Going to keep me nice and cozy this winter, if we get any cold weather, that is. Fingers crossed. I love the snow. So really practical and really beautiful as well. I like the pattern on these, really nice. Now you will have enough wool left in your pack to make another pair of gloves. You will be able to use some of the patterning we've got on here, but I would suggest you make a stripy pair. Okay, decide which ones you're going to use for the rib or the thumb in particular, but just make sure you use the same number of rows as there were on the chart. Do the pattern for the rib in exactly the same way, the pattern for the thumb in exactly the same way, and you will have a stripy pair of gloves to give away to somebody else. I'd suggest you keep these for yourself because they're very lovely. Okay, right, well done, excellent work. Keep up the good job. You've learnt lots of new skills in this and really stretched your learning, but hopefully you're really proud of your result. Just thought I ought to show you what to do when you come to the end of one of the grey balls of wool. Mine just happens to be now, so I've just finished the whole of the white row, and I should be joining the grey back in to come back across. But when I look at it, that's the amount that I have left. I don't think it's enough to make the row. I don't think it's quite enough to make the row. So this is a good place because I'd be joining something back in anyway. So what I'll do is I'll start off with my new ball of grey, and I'll join that back in instead and put the other piece to one side because that might be useful for sewing up later. So just exactly the same as any other time to join this in, but the you do need to keep your eye on how much wool you've got left, in particular the main colour, because it's not too difficult to add that colour in now at the beginning of a row, but if you suddenly realise midway through a row that you've run out of a colour, it just doesn't look quite so good. It's you can add it, it's not a problem, but it's always easier to start adding it at the end of a row. So just keep an eye on your grey in particular, just to make sure that if you need to change colours, you can change colour at the beginning of a row rather than mid-row where it's not. It's possible, and it's exactly the same as we've done now. But what you've got to do is you end up having to weave in the end of the other ball that you've just finished with, and also weave in the one that you're just starting with at the same time. So just not ideal, but I'll show you how to do that just in case you need to. Okay, so I said I'd show you what to do if you suddenly realised you'd come to the end of a ball of wool in the middle of a row. And here's my end, nowhere near long enough to finish the row. So what I'm going to do with that is I will take my new ball of wool, start knitting with it. I'm holding both ends in my fingers. If you can see, I've got hold of both ends. I'll start knitting with this, but this time when I weave in, I've got to weave in two ends. Okay, so making sure I weave in both. So, I mean, it's possible. It's not horrendous, but it's just easier if you start a new ball of wool at the end of a row. But this is what you do if you don't. So I think I've probably one more and I'll have weaved in enough. I'll probably snip some ends there. But it just feels that's a little bit chunkier here because it's I've had to weave in two. So let's cut off those ends. Making sure I don't cut through the wool underneath. Okay, so there, and I just carry on to the end. So it is possible, but it just gives you something else to learn if that's what happens to you.